Out of pride, Vusi doesn't go home. Out of pride, Vusi doesn't go home. Why? Uyenzani? Selimgwinyile igoli. Our guy urobetse in a basement in an office park mu-Centurion. Heban. In Sotho they say buphilo buthatha. NgesiZulu sithi impilo inzima. And Vusi was no exception. During the early stages of Vusi's entrepreneurial journey, when he was still building his business, he faced significant financial challenges such that when financial constraints were at their peak, Vusi found himself without a stable place to live. But rather than giving up or succumbing to defeat, he made the decision to sleep in his car. This was a temporary solution that allowed him to minimize his expenses and channel all available resources into sustaining and growing his business. Today, Vusi Thembekwayo is a venture capitalist, a best-selling author, and one of the continent's biggest public speakers. Known all over the world, he also boasts a net worth only a few of us will ever attain. Hi, welcome back. I'm really excited about this one. So grab a snack, get comfortable, dim the lights, and enjoy. This is Dollar Bills Corner. Cheers. In the bustling township of Wattville, Epinoni, on the east end of Johannesburg, an extraordinary tale begins to unfold. Born in 1985, nearing the end of the apartheid government, Vusi tells us a story about his grandmother's chicken.
Tell you a little story about me and a chicken. So when I was a little boy, my grandmother gifted me a chicken. Don't ask me why a chicken. She thought it was a good idea. I must have been 4, maybe 5 at the time. And my grandmother, I am traditional Zulu. My grandmother comes from a very deep part of KZN, Jozini. And so we used to go visit every single school holiday, as it were. And in this particular instance, my grandmother gifted me a chicken. I liked the chicken. I wasn't sure why, but again, took the chicken. And I took the chicken and I put what you might call a little rope around the chicken's leg. Because I didn't have a cage, you see. Didn't want to lose the chicken. And you know how black people are with chicken. So I took the chicken and I had a little rope on one of the chicken's legs and I tied it to a little fence next to my grandmother's door. And before the end of this particular school holiday, my grandmother said to me that I could now untie my chicken and the family would enjoy the feast. So I did. I went to the chicken and untied it, but I didn't want the family to enjoy the chicken. And so I tried very hard to shoo the chicken away, because after you've untied it, you would think that the chicken would run. And it didn't. And I shooed it some more, and the chicken didn't run. My theory is that this is exactly where Africa and African entrepreneurs are today. You and I, we're that chicken. And over the past 400 years, we've had systems that have tied us on our legs and told us what we can and cannot do, that which we are and are not capable of.
Like the chicken, we're trapped by the barriers and limitations imposed upon us by our own minds, imposed upon us by the dark history that still hovers above our beautiful country. For most of us, our stories had already been written, forced onto us with an iron fist, thrust upon us by law. Laws with roots that date back to a great many of generations. Laws such as the Lands Act, where black people were prohibited from buying or renting in areas designated as white. Or the Bus Laws Act, officially known as Idombas, that forced black citizens to carry reference books at all times. Failure to produce one resulted in arrest, detention, or deportation after a good hiding if the Afrikaans man was having a bad day. I say this not to divide, but because I want you to understand, black child, that it's only been 30 years since democracy versus the 535 years since the poignant evening when the Europeans first set foot in our beautiful country. From that moment going forth, articles, books, and educational institutions have been built with the sole premise of exploiting native South Africans in pursuit of enriching themselves. These establishments may not be physical anymore. They may not be proudly and conspicuously displayed in white-only billboards anymore. They may not be inscribed in laws and regulations anymore. Yet their psychological repercussions still linger. We may have not been there during the old times, but that does not mean their history does not affect us during the present times. You cannot erase a scar with a bandage. It takes time. Healing takes time. Healing is not linear.
Apartheid didn't lose. Apartheid won. The project about apartheid wasn't convincing white people that they were better or black people that they were worse. The project of apartheid was convincing black people that none amongst them was good enough. You. So let me tell you something. When you make it as a black person, you don't need white enemies. Black people will show you.
He pulls up in a V8 engine, dark green, loud stereo, Ford Granada. Mabaso pulls up, cool glasses, leather pants, and silky shirt. Loud money. If you grew up Pegasi in the 2000s or better yet in the 80s or 90s, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Every township has their own version of Umgeteza. The problem is, as always, it was gangster money. And the bigger problem is, back then, these were the only role models black kids could look up to if they wanted nice things. Remember, we had Bantu education. Our grandfathers and great-grandmothers couldn't aspire to be doctors, lawyers, and chartered accountants. So those who did make it, usually, it was through crime. And Vusi looked up to Mabaso. He aspired to be like him. He too wanted to have nice things. However, Mabaso made his fortunes jacking cars. And when Vusi realized this, dismayed, he learned that although his dream was valid, his idol was not. Township, Ekas, the location, Elukshin, is where Vusi grew up. Spaza shops, vendors selling vegetables on pavements. Nyawupe boys gallivanting the streets, leaning on his stop nonsense. Amachita plomile konen. Your girlfriends are getting seduced in Shabins and chowed in Kukwin. Like any other township, crime is high, petty theft is a thing, and hunger is the norm. Smart, eloquent, and inquisitive, Vusi is promoted a grade higher than his peers. Intelligent, curious, and well-spoken, Vusi is promoted to another. By the time he finished primary school in Waterville, he had already been promoted 3 grades ahead of his peers. Noticing his linguistic abilities and intellectual prowess, his mother decided to move Vusi to a Model C school.
He was this type of child that was always ey'ncwadini zakhe ne. He was a child that funda. He was not a child who estradini. He never had too many friends. Every time it's either he's at school or he's at gym. He was very much involved in sport. He used to do karate. He was in choir, and he is this type of a child. If he wants a thing, he wants it.
A Model C school. Those schools where English comes out through the nostrils, and Vusi was one of the few black kids in that school. As a matter of fact, he was one of the blackest kids in the room. In this Model C school, Vusi is pulled down 2 grades because he did not know Afrikaans.
Every single part of the exam, English, math, everything, except Afrikaans. There was this lady, Mrs. Olivier. She later actually became my Afrikaans teacher. She shows me images. She says, "What's this in Afrikaans?" She pointed at a kitchen. Sure. And I didn't know what a kitchen was in Afrikaans. I was like, "A kitchen?" I didn't know.
Will you go out with me?
I'll think about it.
Have you thought about it?
Yes.
And?
I can't.
But why?
Want jy's 'n koffer.
Emotional damage!
Who does he think he is? This black guy. What is he even doing here? They should have kept him in their hood.
The words hit him like a brick. Vusi later writes about this experience, saying, and I quote, "I think about that girl, the girl of my broken dreams, and I realized that she was the one who was living in mental slavery. She was the one, trapped in and by the past. As for myself, I was free. For I have learned the truth about the world, that it isn't as round as a tennis ball, and it isn't shaped like itself. It is shaped the way that we shape it, according to how we see it, the way we mold it to our ambitions and our destiny. I know the color of who I am. I am a black man, running for my life, for my freedom, for opportunity born from struggle, possibility born from sacrifice. And I am running too, for my father, who never became what he hoped to be and who never got to see what his children would one day become." Vusi, the father, had 3 kids. Vusi bears the first part of his father's name, while his younger brother Muzi bears the second. The third child, I do not know who it is, but I do know that it's a she and it's their sister. However, uniting his 2 sons in his name is very poetic. It's beautiful. The financial situation, however, wasn't. Vusi wanted to start a business, and interestingly enough, his father, that is Vusi's grandfather, was a shebeen and spaza shop owner. Thus, Vusi comes from a lineage of entrepreneurs. However, Vusi lacked the financing required to start his own business, so he took out a loan with a bank on terms unfavorable to him because, well, he's black. And in those days, interest would be higher on black people because, well, they're black. However, it gets worse. Vusi used their home as collateral, and when this business went bust, they lost everything, including the house. Drowning in debt and kicked out of their home, they were forced to start living with relatives. It wasn't all gloomy though. Vusi and his father were tight. NgesiZulu sithi amathi nolwimi. Vusi would go to the dojo with his father, copying his moves, mimicking his movements, mirroring his motions, side by side, father and son, in sync, in harmony. Vusi practiced so much, in fact, and just like his father, he eventually earned his black belt. But one day, they had a party. Vusi was 13 at the time, his father, 41. They sang along, loud music, big family, immaculate vibes. They cut the cake. Dipiri di fedile. The alcohol has run out. A narrow escape. He's stabbed several times, but he survives. In high school, Vusi was very disruptive in class. He was what you would call the class clown, making jokes, speaking a lot, talking loudly. You would even think that he was trying to cover up for some insecurity that perhaps he felt like he did not belong. Imposter syndrome. Remember, he was moved from Egas in the township. Now he's surrounded by all these affluent kids. However, never lacking in confidence, Vusi continued to be Vusi. But one day, his teacher was so fed up with him that he decided to give him two alternatives as punishment. Either he was going to serve detention, or he was going to do public speaking. Public speaking is daunting. As a matter of fact, statistically, it ranks very highly on one of the things that are most feared on planet Earth, with some people ranking it higher than death itself. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, roughly 75% of the population has glossophobia, which is psychological gibberish for being afraid to speak to a crowd. As Vusi walks to the stage, his teacher is smiling, proud of her punishment. She's expecting Vusi to fail. How exciting. Vusi faces the crowd, opens his mouth, and flops. Vusi botched the whole thing so badly, in fact, they booed him off stage and even threw things at him. But this was a blessing in disguise, because it flipped the switch in him.
I think that flipped the switch in me where I was like, okay, fuck you, watch this.
Ashamed and embarrassed, Vusi wanted to prove everyone wrong. He wanted to master the art of public speaking. In that very same year, with the same educator who punished him, he ended up learning a very valuable lesson. His educator told him he simply did not prepare. And as we all know, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And guess what? Preparing is cheap, but repairing is very costly. Please forgive me, I'm in my Steve Kompela era. As time went on, as he put in the hours, he got better and better and better. Realizing his potential, he decided to enter the public speaking competitions locally. Then he started entering public speaking competitions nationally. And he did so great that at the age of 17, he found himself on the world stage in the United Kingdom, competing in the World Championships of Public Speaking. Before he went on stage, his mother called for him. Vusi, I'm proud of you. As he was about to roll his eyes, thinking to himself, yeah. Hey, mothers, man, they're so emotional. His mother says, I'm not proud of you because of how far you've come in this competition. I'm proud of you because you've already won it. Emotional, Vusi grips his mother tight. A warm hug, the last hug, before he goes up on stage. And he wins it. He completely obliterates his opponents, taking home the first place. He comes back to South Africa a national hero and even gets to meet Tata Madiba for some tea and biscuits. Winning the World Championships opened up a plethora of opportunities for him. One day, Vusi was invited to speak about the future of South Africa at a high-class event where former President Thabo Mbeki gave the keynote address. Vusi spoke, And like always, well, with the exception of that one time in high school, he played his audience like a violin, raising his voice when necessary, slowing down his tempo when required, and pausing for dramatic effect. He commands his audience, and when he was done making love to their ears, sorry about that. It sounded dope in my head. It sounds weird. Anyways, he finishes his speech, and the crowd goes nuts. They roar, even giving him a standing ovation, which was quite odd given the nature of the occasion. He was simply that good. So good, in fact, that Thabo Mbeki went out of his way and seeked him just so he could talk to him and encourage him. Vusi, the salesman, exploited this opportunity and started networking with people in the events so he can land further gigs at other events. His popularity spread like wildfire, to a point, in fact, that companies not only asked him to come and speak at their events, but also sought his counsel on how they can solve the business challenges that they were facing. He was only 20 at the time, and as luck would have it, he started meeting more powerful businessmen. His buzz growing, his reputation as a credible speaker and business advisor increasing, he gets the idea. Maybe he should start a consulting firm and capitalize on these opportunities. So he does. He starts a consulting company and charges people for his time. And as the great urban speaker would say, money got longer. He ran a successful consulting firm at the age of 21, but it didn't strive very long. Way over his head, he bit off more than he could chew, and he found himself in debt that he could not afford. He started sleeping in his car, and a year later, in 2007, this car got repossessed. Vusi got his big break a bit later, when he was hired by a CEO who happened to be one of the members in his audience during a keynote he was giving. Impressed by his business acumen, he decided Vusi would be a perfect fit as part of management, with multiple sources stating that Vusi at the time was the youngest director of a listed entity.
As we speak, I'm the youngest director of a listed company in South Africa.
Vusi reported directly to the group operations director at a huge wholesale cash and carry group in Johannesburg. Vusi did so well that they promoted him to run a division with an annual turnover of 463 million rand, which is more impressive after you learn the fact that under his leadership, he grew it from only 16 million rand. Furthermore, just to make me feel more shitty about myself, he was only 25 years old at the time, the only black guy in the room. Again, but he wasn't a sellout. No, as a matter of fact, one day the directors approached Vusi and asked him to score as a director. This sounded like a promotion until he realized their true intent. They wanted to rate higher on BEE points so they could get more tenders. However, this time, it didn't work. A huge block of muscle, standing at 6'4", he looked at them in the eye and outright refused. He told his superiors to shove it, he wasn't going to do it, and suddenly imposter syndrome kicked in. He started to wonder, am I here because I actually deserve it? Am I here because I am good enough? Am I truly capable? But he shrugged his shoulders, sighed, and eloquently as always, he says, if I'm going to be excellent, let me be excellent for what I have done, not because I happen to have done it because I was black. And this is part of the problem we have nowadays. Your race, your gender, your sexual orientation shouldn't be at the center of it. People shouldn't hire you just because you are a woman. People shouldn't invest in your business just because you are black. Nowadays, people are black first and then we look at their business idea after. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't invest in previously disenfranchised people. I genuinely believe that this is a noble pursuit. All I'm saying is, it shouldn't be because I am black or because she's a woman. It should be because we genuinely think that they're good enough, that we are good enough.
Black History Month you find
Ridiculous.
why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
So Vusi said no. He refused to be a front. He refused to be a tool used to accomplish these men's greedy agendas. Once upon a time, in the captivating world of entrepreneurship, there existed Dragon's Den South Africa, a thrilling TV show that brought together ambitious individuals and profit-seeking investors. Deep in the heart of Johannesburg, a group of talented and aspiring entrepreneurs gathered to showcase their innovative business ideas to a formidable panel of experienced investors, known as the Dragons. These dragons are renowned for their success and wealth, having turned their own ventures into remarkable triumphs. As the lights dimmed and the cameras began to roll, the entrepreneurs took their places in the den. Nerves tingling, the fear of failure sinks in, but the excitement of winning also kicks in. And one by one, the entrepreneurs stepped forward, presenting their ideas, chasing their dreams. Some had developed groundbreaking technological advancements, while others had created unique consumer products or services that could potentially revolutionize the market. With a keen eye for spotting diamonds in the rough, they dissected each pitch, grilling the entrepreneurs with penetrating questions and leaving no stone unturned. They sought to uncover the strength of each business model, the market potential, and the entrepreneur's ability to execute their vision. As tensions mounted and the entrepreneur's dreams hanging in the balance, the dragons engaged in fierce debates among themselves.
I'm going to make you an offer.
Vusi,
I want to make you an offer.
Vusi.
I want to offer you 300,000 rand.
Vusi, you were not interested. What's wrong with you now?
They weighed the risks, calculated the rewards, and ultimately decided whether they should invest their hard-earned capital in these aspiring ventures. In the den, dreams were shattered and hopes were lifted. Some entrepreneurs left with the bag, some fumbled it. The panel of judges consisted of 5 incredible individuals. In the center is the renowned Vusi Thembekwayo. Amongst them is Gil Oved, the CEO of the largest advertising agency in South Africa. Polo Litega, chartered accountant turned entrepreneur. Vinnie Lingham, serial internet entrepreneur. And the media magnate himself, Lebu Kunguluza Sir. His appearance in Dragon's Den is what really sparked the public's interest in him, because up until that point it was mostly executives and people within the business community who knew him. But now, appearing on live television for the entire nation to see, now he got what the 2000s would call clout. Dragon's Den had such an impact on the public image that even till this day they are referred to and introduced as Dragon Investors. This show aired nearly 10 years ago. According to one of his keynotes, Vusi personally invested about 4 million rand in Dragon's Den. He lost it all and never got it back. But who cares? What's a measly 4 million rand to a man like Vusi? It doesn't matter that 4 million rand was worth a lot more 10 years ago. Like seriously, dude probably made all his money back in one business deal. For example, in 2017, he sold one of the advisory companies he founded to Watermark, a US-based firm, for an undisclosed amount. It's 2023, and nearly 4 years ago, Vusi Thembekwayo was named GQ's Man of the Year. We need to rewind though and look at how we got there. My Growth Fund is a venture capital firm established in 2014 to bring African entrepreneurs into the mainstream economy. They offer debt and equity assistance to entrepreneurs seeking to grow their small businesses. Debt instruments are when an entrepreneur borrows money from either the public, the government, or a financial institution. And how this works in a practical sense is, let's say that I'm an entrepreneur and you are an investor. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to draw up a contract. And in this contract, I'm going to stipulate that I need to borrow 100 rand from you. In exchange, I'm going to pay you back over a period of, let's say, 5 years at an X amount of interest. Equity instruments, on the other hand, is when I try to raise money from the public, financial institutions, or the government, except in this case, I do not need to pay them back. A typical example is when a company sells shares and promises to increase its value over time. The difference between the above two is that in equity, they don't have to pay you back. You are the one who is incurring the risk in exchange for ownership, voting rights, and potential returns. Debt, however, the company must pay you back. If they can't, then they might go bankrupt. Now, your question might be, why don't people just buy debt instruments then? Well, because the risk on debt instruments is low, then the returns are typically low. But with equity instruments, the risk is at its highest, so returns can also be high. Please note that you can also get hybrid instruments, which is typically a combination of both debt and equity instruments, but this is not something I want to dive into in this video. Simply broken down, my growth fund does only 2 things. You can apply for funding or invest with them. They currently have 3 funds and 1 business unit. They have the VUGA Fund, which manages over 1.5 billion rand. It is an SME specialist and mid-market investment fund. Mount Fletcher SPV. SPV is probably a special purpose vehicle. Nobody knows what happens here. It's very private. All we know is that it's a fund for high net worth individuals, which only invest for you on an invitation-only basis. FinTech Africa Fund, which is a pure play growth stage fintech investment platform, managing about $80 million. And my growth fund also has a business unit called School of Scale, which is a scalability program helping founders to achieve 2 times growth in just 12 months. School of Scale reminds me of the famous Y Combinator, which is a factory that produces other businesses. A business manufacturing businesses? And obviously, as a group chief executive officer of a venture capital firm on one hand and a successful global speaker on the other, Vusi wanted to find a way to give back to South Africa besides giving away money like he did in Dragon's Den. Known for his immense knowledge and success in the business world, Vusi had a burning desire to share his insights and empower others on their own entrepreneurial journeys. He recognized the power of education. So My Growth Fund, in collaboration with Capitec, decided to offer masterclasses as a platform to impart his expertise to aspiring entrepreneurs and business professionals. In addition to traveling all over the world, giving keynotes and presentations, talking about politics, talking about business, talking about finance, these masterclasses became a beacon of knowledge and inspiration, attracting individuals from all walks of life, individuals who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford to get an in-person experience with him.
You're broke!
As word spread about the transformative impact of Vusi's masterclasses, eager participants flocked to learn from him. The stage was set, and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation as many people gathered up to marinate in his wisdom. He would share his personal experiences, the lessons he learned, and strategies for success by painting vivid pictures of the business landscape and the challenges that entrepreneurs face today. Through these masterclasses, Vusi would delve deep into complicated subjects such as strategic thinking, effective leadership, marketing tactics, sales strategies, financial management, and innovation. In these masterclasses, complex MBA topics such as corporate finance, sales, human resources, and marketing became democratized and broken down into digestible nuggets that anyone can understand. Before, he tailored his presentations to meet the specific needs of high-ranking corporate executives. Here, however, with great humility and generosity, as these masterclasses were free, he spoke to the common man.
It's curious to me how people who have the least to be scammed from want to make the most noise about being scammed. Mawuthi uvusa uskemile. Konje unamalini engizoyithatha. And angikudeleli ngiyabuza.
You're fucking poor!
People watch my masterclasses that I did online and go, see, he's scamming people. Those were free. I took my time that I could have been spending at home with my 3 beautiful kids.
Yeah.
And I came and spent it in a room with young entrepreneurs who were asking questions where I felt I could help. Isono Sami's panel was that I invited guys with cameras and I said, record it so that we can show it to others. So if they have the same questions, they can see the answers.
Yeah.
That was it.
Besides running a venture capital firm, a public speaking business, and his research institution, he also authored 2 books. Vusi, Business and Life Lessons from a Black Dragon, and The Magna Carta of Exponentiality. I personally didn't like the books. I read both of them. Vusi, Business and Life Lessons from a Black Dragon is an okay book. I just think because I've read so many great books that certain books, when I read them, it's just But at the same time, it's unfair for me to compare Vusi to people who are writers as a profession who've been writing for their entire lives. Obviously, that's not fair. However, I didn't like the book. It even had spelling mistakes. And the second one, The Magna Carta of Exponentiality, it was actually a decent book. It's a book that teaches you how to build a successful organization. So I recommend it to you if that's what you're interested in. Vusi also has a podcast, Ideas That Matter. He's more of a philosopher in the podcast than he is a business speaker. And I need to clarify that he is a business speaker.
There are layers in public speaking, Chief. At the top is something we call a halo speaker, a business speaker, professional speaker, inspirational, motivational, right?
Okay.
So when you call us speakers, you're trying to club all of us into one.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's not how you guys understand it. It's cool.
People who don't listen to him mistake him for a motivational speaker. You might feel inspired by some of the things that he says and occasionally find some of the things he says motivational, but he isn't an Eric Thomas, the hip-hop preacher, or a Les Brown. He's more of a Simon Sinek or a Patrick Bet-David kind of speaker, except he's obviously way better because he's a trained professional speaker. Vusi has achieved tremendous success in his books, having sold more than 80,000 copies. And his podcasts have also done quite well over the years, having garnered tens of thousands of listeners with a 4.7 star rating on Apple's podcast, a 4.9 star rating on Spotify, and it even made it to the top 10 favorite podcasts in South Africa, which is quite crazy considering it's not even a traditional podcast where there's guests and they share a conversation or whatever. It's literally just him recording 30-minute voice notes of wisdom. I'm about to serve you with beef and toi.
Find common ground.
Yeah, that's not going to fucking happen. Fuck him.
No, not on camera.
No.
Sizwe Dlomo is a radio host on Kaya FM and has also worked as a TV presenter at huge shows like Top Billing and MTV Base Africa. He's reportedly very rich thanks to his grandfather, Isaac Dlomo, who made exorbitant amounts of wealth before he unfortunately passed away, leaving his inheritance to his family, whom Sizwe is a huge beneficiary of. Vusi Thembekwayo and Sizwe Dlomo's beef started on Twitter, when Sizwe Dlomo lashed out at Vusi for stealing his ideas and presenting them as if they were his own. The idea is this.
Hi guys, so my inbox has been inundated with this whole morning's taxi strike in
Gilbert, you keep asking me what my thoughts on it. I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you.
And what I mean when I say we need to change our thinking. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So it turns out that the taxi industry buys about 1,200 taxis every year. 82% of them come from Toyota specifically. The problem is, because they don't group themselves and buy in bulk, every time they go and buy from Toyota, they're buying in single units, so they don't get the right pricing margin and the right pricing discount. The second is, why they're buying from Toyota and not manufacturing their own local brand of taxis. Because think about it, if you manufacture 1,200 taxis every year, you have a ready business model, a ready business market.
And I have to say, I actually believe Sizwe on this one. I genuinely think Vusi took the idea, dressed it up in nice English, and then he presented it on Twitter. Then he later said this.
Now, here's why it's important. Those facts were public knowledge. It's not like he went and found researchers who went and dug up something as primary evidence. Was secondary data. We were all pulling it from the same place. If you and I read the same financial report, we're going to get the same data. Yeah. Right?
So Sizwe was just mad because he came up with this idea first. The beef further culminated when Sizwe exposed Vusi for wearing a fake watch. Kifong Kong didn't. And although Vusi likes pretending that he doesn't care what other people say, his actions prove otherwise.
I think I've reached a stage where I just don't care. I really just don't care.
I say this because he did an entire press release just to explain the whole fake watch situation. The beef reignited in 2020 when Sizwe pointed out inconsistencies with his sleeping in the car story, because around the same time I thought he was a director at a cash and carry company. He alludes to spending time in that company for 3 or 4 years or something. According to him, he grew revenues from 16 million rand to 463 million rand. My point is, I find it hard to believe that he grew revenues that quickly. Sizwe took to Twitter, saying that Vusi's stories do not add up, saying that this is the problem with lying, is that they pile up on top of one another. Now you need a new lie to cover up the old one. During another tour, where Vusi said Sizwe lacks the intellectual depth to be commenting on complex tax affairs, Sizwe responded saying it's rich coming from him considering he got kicked out of the South African Venture Capital Association for having fake qualifications. To his defense, Vusi has since said that his term on the South African Venture Capital Association has expired. And if this is true, I think it's unfair of Sizwe to go around spreading rumors like this because they can have some damaging consequences on somebody's reputation. As it stands, the two really can't stand each other. If they were to meet, it would probably turn into a fist fight, a brawl. And I'm not making this up. Sizwe tweeted that he would beat the living shit out of him. All he has to do is come to his place of work, Ekaya FM. Pearl Tusi. Yes. Pearl Tusi. Yes, I also did not expect Pearl Tusi to come up in my video. However, she took to Twitter and said that the two should just have a boxing match and settle this whole thing once and for all.
So I want to see Vusi Thembekwayo fight Sizwe. I want to see Sizwe fight Vusi Thembekwayo. Please make it happen. Please, man, come on. Like, but don't make it in San City. Gugude. Yenze nje la eduze. Sibone, man. I want to fight, man. Nyovi. Sizwe, Vusi. Let's make money, man. Stop this one. Stop tweeting. This is boring. Like,
building businesses is hard. It's one of the most difficult things that you'll ever encounter. Building from scratch, from nothing. First generation wealth is messy. But inheritance, however, inheritance is easy. It's clean. It doesn't show the blood that was spilled in order to have it. It doesn't show the sweat or the many years of labor and things that the person is not proud of that they had to do in order to create it in the first place. It's just, hey, how's it? Here you go. And this battle between Vusi, a self-made millionaire, and Sizwe, a proud beneficiary of wealth, was really intriguing because they are both of similar age. The beef between Vusi and Sizwe is like a father fighting with his child. See, Vusi is first generation wealth. He's creating from nothing. His children, however, are the next Sizwe. They are benefiting from everything.
He hasn't proven himself beyond what he's been given.
Now, I'm not saying this to discredit Sizwe. It's not his fault he's rich. He should continue living his life as he continues to do. Spend his money as he continues to do. The point that I was trying to make is that Vele Vusi's path was going to be messy. Vele there's going to be bankruptcies. Vele there's going to be some untrue things being said. Maybe he lied about being rich and running a 300 million rand fund so he can appeal to a certain audience when in reality he was broke and he was sleeping in his car. Or maybe it's the inverse. Maybe he lied about sleeping in his car to appeal to another audience so he can gain sympathy from them. Now, whichever side is true, historically, there has never been no nation, no country, no empire, no corporation, no race, and certainly no individual self-made millionaire who got there with their hands 100% clean. They are all dirty. It's messy. They know, but deep down inside their hearts, some of the lies they told, the friends they threw under the bus, the undeserved credit they took for work that's not even theirs, and the corners they have cut. We see these things all the time in corporate. The political games that are being played to get a promotion or a raise or whatever. Even in Facebook, I'll never forget, Mark Zuckerberg betrayed and backstabbed his own best friend. Steve Jobs stole the idea of a personal computer from Xerox, and then he took all the credit. Bill Gates did a scammer on Steve Jobs by stealing intellectual property from Apple while he was working for Apple. My point is, these are cutthroat, ruthless individuals. As a matter of fact, if you Google right now who is the founder of McDonald's, it'll say Ray Kroc.
I'm looking at a letterhead with the name McDonald's on it. You care to explain?
It was confusing. People didn't even know it had anything to do with McDonald's.
What's confusing is you calling yourself the McDonald's Corporation. People will think it's the whole company, not just the real estate arm, which we strongly suspect is what you hope.
You put Dick's Arches on your letterhead? This is not your company, Ray.
Mac.
Do you understand that?
Mac, don't get upset.
We came up with the Speedy system, not you. Us. What have you ever come up with? Can you name one thing? You can't. And you never have, and you never will, because you are a leech, Ray. You are a professional leech.
You know what I came up with, Mac? A concept. I came up with the concept of winning. While you two boys were content to sit back and be a couple of also-rans.
Listen properly.
I want to take the future. I want to win. And you don't get there by being some aw shucks nice guy sap. There's no place in business for people like that. Business is war. It's dog eat dog, rat eat rat. If my competitor were drowning, I'd walk over and I'd put a hose right in his mouth. Can you say the same?
Do you know the story of the McDonald brothers? Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because there's a lesson to be learned there. You need to protect yourself at all times. And secondly, it's easy for Caesar to claim moral ground and criticize and laugh at Vusi from the sidelines because he's not the one who's building from the ground, building a legacy for his kids. He doesn't even have kids. The two are not even comparable. One is a father, the other, a spoiled rich kid. As much as I admire Vusi, his story changes all the time. Here he says he watched his father get shot 9 times.
You witnessed your dad getting shot 9 times.
Yeah, it was tough.
Okay.
I watched my father be shot 9 times.
Yet in his book he wrote, and I quote, "To this day, I don't know the truth of what happened. Nobody does, least of all the police. Unless I'm the one who misunderstood, it appears to me when I read the book that he wasn't there during the time that his father got shot. As a matter of fact, he went on to paint a vivid picture about how they tried to call his father and he didn't pick up. In his book, he writes about how he was pulled 2 grades down when he went to high school. But that doesn't make sense because if he went to high school, then that means he was in grade 8. So if he's pulled 2 grades down, that means he's in grade 6. Yeah, he says it occurred in primary school.
And I didn't know what a kitchen was in Afrikaans. To this day, I will never forget that a kitchen in Afrikaans is a kombuis. Now I know. No. So as a result, she demoted me. So I was supposed to go into grade 5. I ended up going to grade 3.
Yet when you read his book, it occurred in high school. Vusi also wrote about how his father's house got repossessed due to his business floundering. But here he's seen talking about not knowing whether his mom would keep the house after his father's passing.
When my father died, we come from a very traditional family, and there was expectations around whether or not we would keep the house in the first place.
As a business speaker, a business consultant, and the author of 2 business books, one wouldn't expect Vusi to have financial difficulties, especially after releasing a podcast which is titled How to Manage Debt. However, Vusi is proving to be an interesting character because FNB threatened to repossess a piece of land he owned in Stein City, which is worth 4 million rand due to him not being able to pay. He further exacerbates rumors that he might not be as wealthy as we think he is because he's been struggling to pay back a loan that he owes to Dr. Jerome Pillay. In June 2021, while I was still doing my final year for the final time, Vusi borrowed 300,000 rand from Dr. Jerome Pillay and promised to pay him back after 2 months. He was expected to pay by 24 September 2021, and when he didn't, Dr. Pillay gave him a letter of demand. As per this letter, Vusi was expected to pay 52,000 rand per month for the next 10 months, which is quite ridiculous because this amounts to 520,000 rand. Considering the loan is 300,000 rand, Jerome is what you would call a loan shark, or better yet, umashonisa. The exact amount will be decided by the courts depending on what they believe to be fair and just, but it's quite hypocritical for a businessman who stresses the importance of cash flow to be chased around for things like this. Harare.com calls him the disappearing millionaire, with lawyers struggling to serve him with summons. Apparently, they can't find him. They're looking for him everywhere, with Sunday World calling him elusive. However, I suspect these rumors to be false, because if my friend could find Vusi and even have lunch with him, then what the f***? Anyways, shortly after this, within the same year, in 2021, Vusi allegedly slaps his wife in their Johannesburg home. After slapping her several times, he drags her by the feet down the staircase. I cannot confirm the exact date because Vusi came back from an international business trip on 6 December 2021, whilst these news sources claim the incident occurred on the 4th of December. Regardless of when it happened, shortly after the incident, Vusi Thembekwayo opened a GBV case at Douglasdale police station. According to a police statement, he arrived at their home, found her sleeping upstairs and proceeded to wake her up. He found her drunk and that's what triggered him. He instructed her to pack and go, to which she refused, and that's when the fighting started. He then loaded her bags in the boot and forced her to get into the car. The statement also goes on to state that while Vusi was driving, headed towards Midrand, when they stopped at the robots near Crowthorne, she jumped out the car and ran away. Opting to keep the official giving the statement anonymous, the police refrained from disclosing his identity. The details of this incident were brought to light by Mavela Masondo, the spokesperson for the Gauteng Provincial Police. Masondo goes on to confirm that Vusi was arrested for common assault and was instructed to appear in Randburg's Magistrates Court on Wednesday. However, Vusi denies these allegations and says he wasn't even detained. Balisa also accuses Vusi of infidelity, claiming that he smashes baddies on his trips all over the world. Considering his money, stature, clout, access, his looks and charisma, not to mention that he's hinted to having a big ding-along.
Law number 2, difficult for me as a man of color to admit, but it's true. Size, it turns out, isn't everything. Not that size is important.
And with Hans constantly throwing themselves at him, and the fact that he spends a lot of time abroad, I suspect that she might not be wrong. Maybe Vusi is engaging in infidelity, but so I wouldn't know. And because of this, and especially because of the GBV, Balisa then went to court to file for a divorce. While the police are currently investigating the GBV case, the courts on the other hand are handling the divorce situation.
I think he's laying hands on his wife.
Hey! 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 Oh!
Yeah, guys, cupcakes.
Look. People sat here. People provided for their families here. Business was done here. So, Mr. Politician, Mr. Lock Down the Country, Mr. Let me tweet and get 500 retweets, where the fuck are you now? Where the fuck are you now? Where are you when these people are having to go home to their kids and tell them they're not going to be able to take them to school anymore, or buy groceries anymore, or provide for their families anymore? Where are you now? You all been fucking around with this country and this economy forever. That's literally what they were doing. They were pissing it up. If they weren't doing fucking corrupt deals, they were arguing in parliament about redundant shit that didn't make any sense for anybody. Now look, where are you now? Where are you now? Look at this view. Look at this. Look at this. All of these hopes, dreams, ambitions, all of it, gone. Gone. Millions in salaries, even more millions in hopes, in dreams, because what people don't understand is the economic impact of shit. So what that means is for every single person who had a job here, there was a home loan, there was a car loan, there was a student loan for kids to go to school, there was a credit card that the bank issued you a credit card for, there was building your home or renovating your home or building a home in the rural areas where your families lived, there was overseas holidays. This is how you build a fucking economy. So, politicians, where are you now? Quiet now, huh? Nothing to say now, huh? And all you do is you call conferences and you talk about the economy and people who are dying. This is the impact of your stupidity over the past 26 years. You did this. Because if you had built a country that was inclusive with an economy that was growing, we could have survived this shit. But you guys were too busy making sure that you're eating at the trough, making sure that your pockets aligned, making sure that your deals made sense, making sure that you build yourself your homesteads. That's what you guys were busy doing. And for the Neanderthals on the other side of the debate, on the opposition side, you were too busy trying to earn votes. So excuse me, when for the first time ever in my social media I make the words, fuck you.
In 2020, during COVID, shortly after taking home GQ's Man of the Year award, Vusi called out our government as he has been for years, except this time he was not polite at all. He meant business. Many fans and followers would love Vusi to be president, and this is not because he speaks eloquently, but over the years he has demonstrated his acute knowledge of politics by expressing his views on laws, borders, economic systems and leadership.
Capitalism in its purest form is toxic. So too is socialism. You need a blend of these things. But what you need is a leader who knows what the blend is. A leader who knows where to have true state capital and where to have private markets, free markets, and create the space for these things to happen. But you also live in a country where the labor regulations, for 15 years I've been saying, the labor laws are a problem. The minute you hire one person, the same labor laws that apply to you apply to ShopRite, the largest private sector employer in South Africa. This is the problem here. So there's no incentive for an entrepreneur like yourself to take a little bit of your pension, start a business, and create jobs. So your question was, where are these leaders? They're there and they're there aplenty. But they are very clear that anybody who steps into the breach now is going to be demonized for being sensible.
A lot of us perceive Vusi as the kind of person who doesn't mind doing the things that we won't like in the short term in order for us to benefit in the long term.
We need strong men. That's where South Africa is. You don't need a leader that's trying to be liked or popular. You need a leader that, in fact, seeks out unpopularity. You need a leader that wants to be hated. You need a leader that doesn't want Gareth to like him. He doesn't need the taxi associations to like him. In fact, he doesn't want a second term. He's very clear that halfway through his first term, you're going to try and impeach him.
Despite all of this, however, he has expressed multiple times that he has no interest of running for president. Today, Vusi continues to run a venture capital firm. He continues to make podcasts and fathers his 3 beautiful kids. Today, Vusi continues to inspire, traveling all over the planet, preaching, shaping the world using his words. And words are truly powerful. They start wars and negotiate peace. Words not only have the power to change the world, but to literally create it. If you read the book of Genesis, it was through words that the mountains we climb and the seas we swim in were created. It was through his words that the sun that keeps us warm and gives us light, and the moon that shines in times of darkness and times of night were created. And it is with these words that I pray that all of us building generational wealth from scratch, to all of us starting businesses, creating content, chasing our dreams, chasing our goals, to all of us doing the best we can wherever we are with whatever we have. To us I say, greatness is coming. And may God continue to shine his light on you. Peace.